Chapter 21. The Request of the Great Fighting Spirit Arena. Lin Chuan's winning streak had turned him into a rising star. After winning 11 matches in a row, he was promoted from iron to bronze in the Fighting Spirit rankings, and the news quickly caused a stir. Within the same rank, there were almost no soul masters who could match him. Not everyone was as unorthodox as Lin Chuan. Word spread fast. The Grand Spirit Arena uses a tiered badge system: iron, copper, silver, gold, purple gold, sapphire, ruby, and finally diamond. Every soul master starts at iron. A normal victory awards 1 rank point and 10 gold soul coins. It normally takes 100 points to advance a rank. However, the arena rewards streaks. After a 5-win streak, each subsequent win grants 10 points, and once a contestant reaches a 10-win streak, each additional victory grants a full 100 points. That is how Lin Chuan, riding his streak, rocketed upward. Even without relying on his sword techniques, just sharpening his boxing and spear moves against opponents, he kept winning easily. The streak didn't just bring fame, it brought wealth too. Bronze-level victories paid 100 gold soul coins apiece, a tidy sum even if it wasn't the gambling windfall he'd had at the start. Time blurred in that narrow, crowded life of fights and travel. Lin Chuan's spirit power climbed as well. He'd reached level 19. The crowd's chants echoed wherever he went. Jax! 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 The stands of the Grand Spirit Arena were packed. The audience roared his codename at the top of their lungs, faces bright with excitement. From being ignored to being adored in the space of a month, Lin Chuan had become the most famous soul master in Sword City's Grand Arena. Many in the crowd watched eagerly, if only to see when his streak would finally end. Boom. With one clean punch, Lin Chuan knocked his opponent off the platform and stepped back. He let out a breath and the arena erupted. Congratulations to Master Jax. He's done it again. 30 consecutive victories, 30-0. Truly incredible. The host's voice shook with excitement. It was the same question on everyone's lips. Who could possibly stop him? Several spectators who'd watched his 30 fights had noticed the strangest thing. Every match had been different, and in none of them had his opponents drawn out their martial souls or used soul skills. That alone drew curiosity and made the tickets sell even faster. The arena was filling its coffers with viewers eager to see what he'd do next. A staff member hurried down to the stage carrying a badge and a card. Master Jax, thank you for your patience. We've tallied your points. Here is your Silver Fighting Spirit badge. Your total points now stand at 2,055. Lin Chuan accepted the badge and the gold soul coin card with a faint smile. Thank you. You're very welcome, Master Jax. It's an honor to have you here, the young attendant said, clearly starstruck. In their eyes, he was already a genius in the making. As Lin Chuan turned to leave, another voice called out, Master Jax, please wait a moment. He paused and looked back. The speaker's attire marked him as a senior staff member of the Grand Arena. Lin Chuan's face showed only mild curiosity. Is there something else? Our supervisor requested I come fetch you, the man said. He's been following Master Jax for some time and would like to invite you for a short meeting, if it's convenient. Lin Chuan's eyes flickered. Of course he was being noticed, and in a place like the arena, that often meant networking, not malice. He nodded. Lead the way. They walked through the arena's inner corridors until they reached an ornate door. The staffer knocked respectfully and opened it. Please come in. Director Shang, Master Jax has arrived, the attendant announced inside. Thank you. You can go now, came the reply. Soon it was just Lin Chuan and a middle-aged man left in the spacious room. The director rose to greet him with a broad smile. Ha ha ha, you must be Soul Master Jax. I've long admired your name. I'm Shang Sui, director of the Grand Spirit Arena of Sword City. I'm honored you came. Director Shang, Lin Chuan replied with a small bow. It's an honor. May I ask the purpose of your invitation? Please sit. Let us talk at ease. Shang Sui gestured to a seat and poured tea. This is tea from the Xingluo Empire. Do try it. Lin Chuan accepted the cup, lifted the small ghost mask on his face briefly, and sipped. A rich aroma rose to him. Very good. If you like it, you can take some on your way out, Shang Sui said, smiling. He didn't waste time on small talk. Master Jax, I won't beat around the bush. Your streak and fighting style have impressed me, and they've impressed the arena. I understand you're officially still a first-rank soul master, but your skill is far beyond. Would you be interested in fighting stronger opponents? We'd like to propose a cross-level challenge. Lin Chuan paused as the meaning sank in. Of course, it was a bid to pair him against higher-ranked soul masters in the main arena to draw crowds and boost the arena's profits. The director's plan was clever, and Lin Chuan felt a tug of something else too, flattered and a little tempted. Explain the details, he said. Shang Sui's eyes gleamed. On behalf of the Grand Spirit Arena, I formally invite you to sign up for our cross-level matches in the main arena. You would face soul masters of higher rank, gold, purple gold, possibly even sapphire. The arena will set the pairings and promote the bouts. If you agree, it will be an enormous spectacle, and we will of course compensate you appropriately. Lin Chuan considered the offer. A cross-level challenge would be dangerous, but it was also the fastest way to test himself, to refine his techniques against truly formidable opponents, and to seize the kind of renown that could open many doors. He met Director Shang's eager gaze and with a faint smile replied, "I'll think about it." Chapter 22, 20,000 Gold Soul Coins. Lin Chuan, known in the arena as Jax, no longer felt any pressure fighting ordinary soul masters. What he wanted was tougher opposition. Stronger opponents would teach him more. The Grand Soul Fighting Arena, however, had its own ideas. A soul master who had won 30 straight matches and then stepped up to challenge a higher-ranked opponent would be perfect publicity. Such a spectacle would pull in crowds, sell tickets, and generate even more profit if they added special wagers and handicaps. What Director Shang says makes sense, Lin Chuan said with a wry smile. But if you arrange a cross-level challenge, it's hardly fair to me. What do I get out of it? Shang Sui smiled back. The man was young in appearance and voice, but experienced in the ways of business. He'd done his homework and knew how popular Lin Chuan had become. If the Grand Arena promoted a cross-level challenge in the main arena, the event would be massive, and that would mean big returns for whoever ran it. Even if Shang Sui didn't pocket all the profits, a successful event would raise his standing, so he wasn't about to be stingy. "Master Jia," he said, using the formal address, "if you agree to take the cross-level fight, the Grand Arena will pay you 10,000 gold soul coins." "Not enough," Lin Chuan shook his head. "If I'm fighting higher-level opponents, one match could cost me far more than that." Shang Sui's smile tightened. "What do you propose, then?" "You'll have to pay more." Lin Chuan's tone was casual but firm. After some back and forth, they settled. The arena doubled their offer, 20,000 gold soul coins, the maximum benefit they were willing to put on the table. Lin Chuan didn't press further. He knew when to take the deal. "You're too generous," he said, trying to be modest. "Don't flatter me," Shang Sui replied. "You'll have 3 days to rest. We'll do the publicity. I'll arrange for a great soul master as your opponent and send you the details." "No need," Lin Chuan shook his head. He didn't want the match fixed or tailored to his preferences. "I like surprises." Shang Sui didn't argue. He walked Lin Chuan to the door and handed him a small iron box of tea as a parting gift. Lin Chuan examined the ornate case with an inscrutable expression. These were the little courtesies of someone in charge, and he accepted it without fuss. Back at the hotel, Lin Chuan kept his promise. He didn't go to the arena for 3 days. He practiced in the hotel's backyard instead, honing his skills quietly. Meanwhile, the arena began its machine of publicity. Word spread across Sword City. Jax, the first-level soul master with 30 consecutive victories, would be stepping up in 3 days to face a level 2 great soul master. The city buzzed. A cross-level fight? Real? This came from the arena itself. How could it be fake? "I've heard of Jax, the bow spirit. Funny thing is, he never uses it. In all 30 fights, he didn't even show his soul skill. He just used an axe and kept winning. A genius, maybe. But a great soul master is a different beast. He'll have an extra soul skill and far greater soul power. I think Jax's streak ends here. Either way, I'm going. It'll be worth seeing." Shang Sui's promotion had worked exactly as he hoped. Tickets flew off the shelves. The main arena's reserved seats were sold out in no time. When he heard the sales figures, Shang Sui almost laughed. This was pure profit. "Director, what level of opponent should we pick for Jax?" one of the staff asked. Shang Sui tapped the table, thinking. Pick a slightly stronger Great Soul Master. His soul ring should be 100 years old, and his record should be solid. We don't want to throw Jax to the wolves, but we also don't want it to be a pushover. And if Jax wins? The staff member asked, worried. If he wins, all the better. A Soul Master beating a Great Soul Master will drive everyone crazy and sell even more tickets. If he loses, we've already profited from the hype. Either way, it's a win for the arena. The staff caught on quickly. You're thinking ahead, as always. Less praise, more work, Shang Sui replied. This fight will be unprecedented. Make sure crowd control is tight and choose candidates carefully. Balance the odds to keep things interesting. Understood, Director. 3 days later, Sword City was electric. Nobles, soul masters, and ordinary citizens packed the grand soul fighting arena. The aisles were full, the crowd noisy with anticipation. Staff bustled to manage the crowd under Shang Sui's orders, promised bonuses, making everyone eager to do their part. As dusk fell, a lone figure appeared at the end of the street and walked slowly toward the arena. The long-awaited cross-level fight was about to begin. Chapter 23, Leapfrog, Start the War. The interior of Sword City's Great Fighting Spirit Arena was magnificent. Despite the massive crowd, the arena staff had everything under control. The throng felt busy and excited rather than chaotic. A middle-aged man and a boy wove their way through the spectators, eyes wide with curiosity. Teacher, there are so many people. Our Soto City Spirit Fighting Arena can't compare, the boy said. He was broad and chunky, with conspicuous red hair and an eager, greedy expression. His gaze kept drifting toward the graceful women passing by, and he even had drool at the corner of his mouth. The adult beside him bumped the boy on the back of the head. Control yourself. We're here for business, not sightseeing, the man scolded, exasperated. Ouch! I know, teacher. The boy pressed his hand to his head and pouted, but he fell into step obediently. They reached the betting counter, and the middle-aged man set his palm down on the table and tapped twice. Hello. I want to place a bet on the match. Put my money on Jax to win. Right away, sir. The attendant took the money bag with a practiced smile. Cross-level challenges drew many gamblers. Today was no different. A moment later, he returned with a betting voucher. Sorry for the wait, sir. Here's your wager slip. Please keep it safe. Thank you. The man tucked the slip into his pocket like a prized possession. The boy's face had gone pale. Teacher, be careful. This is a cross-level match. A soul master versus a great soul master. You have to be certain. If your pick loses, you lose everything. The middle-aged man pushed his square glasses up the bridge of his nose and waved a hand. Do you think I'm reckless? I checked Jax carefully before I bet. He's officially an A-rank soul master, yes, but his soul power is at level 19, and he's only one soul ring away from being a great soul master. He smiled as if confirming a plan. Winning 30 consecutive matches without using martial arts or soul skills isn't something any ordinary soul master can do. Jax's real strength must be at least on par with a great soul master. It's safe to back him. The boy wasn't convinced. It doesn't sound right. He'd trained as a soul master himself, and he knew how big the gaps between ranks could be: soul power, soul skills, experience. Still, he kept his doubts to himself. The last thing he wanted was another lecture from his teacher. You're trying to recruit Jax into Shrek Academy? He blurted instead. That's the idea. A gleam came into the older man's eyes. We're short on students. If someone like Jax is recruitable, I'll fight for him. You're so greedy with your standards. No wonder you never recruit anyone but me and Xiao Ao. The boy grinned despite the head bump he'd just received. Shut up. The teacher rapped him again, then steered him toward the main arena. Keep up. Don't miss the match. They pushed into the central arena where lights flashed and the crowd's roar built to a fever pitch. The event hadn't even started, but the anticipation made the stadium almost unbearably loud. Look at this! The boy gaped, eyes glittering. I'm so jealous. The teacher smoothed the boy's red hair. Then train harder. When you're strong, you'll be the one people cheer for. I will, teacher. At that moment, a figure drifted down over the soul fighting stage, Host Yi, suspended by a pair of colorful, fluttering wings that made her look like a fairy descending from the heavens. The boy's odd expression melted into childish glee. The teacher's smile froze, then he rolled his eyes. Good evening, viewers. I'm your host, Yi, honored to guide you through tonight's main match. I know you're all eager. Her voice was sweet and carried across the arena. The rare cross-level soul fight returns tonight. On one side, the beast martial soul fighter Cloud Leopard, Ao Feng, and on the other, our arena's most popular undefeated master, Jax. Who will win? Will Ao Feng's brutal strength break through, or will Jax extend his streak? Let's bring out the contestants. The crowd exploded into rhythmic chants. Jax! 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 Ao Feng! Ao Feng! Ao Feng! Waves of cheering rolled through the stands until the noise was nearly deafening. With a sharp rustle, a black shadow streaked across the arena and a man appeared in the center. He stood about 1.7 meters tall, nearing 30 years old, broad-shouldered and resolute-faced. Short white hair framed a face with sharp, hard features. From the opposite passage, Lin Chuan stepped out slowly. Despite the thousands of eyes on him, he felt nothing like a stranger to the spotlight. A month in the public eye had made this routine. He walked onto the stage and took in his opponent. His perception swept over Ao Feng. Cloud Leopard's soul power registered at roughly level 27. The arena had matched him with a formidable foe. If Ao Feng were an ordinary opponent, being nearly a full level ahead might have led to a quick surrender, but the director of the soul-fighting arena must have had a reason to set this up. Lin Chuan glanced up at the stands, at the expectant faces, and felt a familiar thrill tighten his chest. The match was about to begin. Chapter 24. Go ahead. Kill him in one blow. What more can I say? Lin Chuan didn't care much about what the director of the Great Soul Fighting Arena thought. All he wanted was for the Great Soul Master before him not to disappoint him. Then I declare the soul fight officially started. Host Yi's voice rang out, her wings fluttered, and she soared out of the arena, leaving the whole stage to Lin Chuan and Ao Feng. Jax, I've heard your name for a long time. Ao Feng said without attacking, taking the initiative to speak. Lin Chuan stayed silent, which didn't seem to irritate him. He continued, You're powerful. 30 straight wins without using a martial soul or soul skills. If we were both ordinary soul masters, I couldn't beat you. But today I'll force you to reveal your martial soul and your soul skills, and I'll beat you fair and square. Have you finished talking? Let's begin, Lin Chuan replied calmly. Ao Feng had watched Lin Chuan fight. The young man's record was terrifying. Even as a great soul master, Ao Feng didn't claim he could defeat someone who'd won 30 times without even using a martial soul. The man in front of him was a serious rival. He tightened his resolve and possessed his spirit. A surge of strong blue light burst out from Ao Feng. His arms stretched, his back swelled, faint cracks ran through his bones. Short white hair shot out until it reached his shoulders and down his back. His palms swelled to more than twice their normal size, covered in blue-white fur. His nails lengthened into razor-sharp claws that flashed coldly in the arena lights. 2 yellow spirit rings rose and spun slowly, pulsing with light as his overflowing spirit power formed a pressuring wave that swept outward. Ao Feng, Spirit Cloud Leopard, Level 27 Fighting Spirit Master. Please teach me, he announced. Lin Chuan's eyebrows lifted. 2 spirit rings at 100 years each, rare indeed. The theoretical ideal for the first 2 soul rings was 100 years, but most soul masters only had 10-year first rings. In all his time in the Great Soul Arena, Lin Chuan had never seen an opponent whose first 2 rings were both 100 years old. Lin Chuan drew the hatchet at his waist and spoke evenly. Jax, Wuhun Black Feather, Level 19 Weapon Soul Master. Ao Feng frowned. You're not going to use your Wuhun yet? I'll use it when I need it, when I really need it, Lin Chuan said. Then don't blame me for being merciless. I'll force you to use it. Ao Feng roared. He stomped, hair flying, then lunged forward with explosive power. The fight was on. They closed the distance instantly. Ao Feng's leopard claws sliced through the air and grabbed at Lin Chuan, but the attack, fast and direct, was easily read. Lin Chuan stepped lightly, twisted his body, and slipped past. It's not over. Ao Feng spun, his claws striking again. Lin Chuan didn't counter. He moved like a leaf on the water, feet light and unpredictable. There seemed to be no pattern to his motions, yet he slipped out of every strike with perfect timing. A stream of information flickered through Lin Chuan's mind with each dodge. Dodge executed, body movement proficiency 1. Observation practiced, observation proficiency +1. Small, incremental improvements accumulated. He realized something. Fighting ordinary soul masters didn't advance him much, but fighting great soul masters, especially ones with greater speed and ferocity, helped. Aofeng's attacks were far more intense than those of a one-ring soul master, so Lin Chuan's proficiencies climbed, albeit slowly. For the skill levels that required tens of thousands of points to advance, these were tiny gains, but better than nothing. The crowd erupted. Shouts for Lin Chuan and Aofeng echoed around the arena. More voices favored Lin Chuan. Such speed! Teacher, this Aofeng is amazing. He's forcing Jax into a defensive stance, yelled a red-haired, heavy-set boy from the stands. Humph, you're still naive. A middle-aged man snorted beside him, but his gaze remained fixed on the stage, sharp and intent on Lin Chuan. From the way the young fighter moved, small, precise dodges executed with the coolness of a veteran, the man saw experience and combat vision that belied Lin Chuan's apparent youth. Only hundreds of fights could forge such instincts, and combat training required both courage and solid power. Jax's voice, masked though it was, sounded young. He hadn't lived through many battles, which made his mastery all the more astonishing. This isn't just genius. He's a little monster, the middle-aged man muttered, excitement making his hands clench. He'd only come to the Sword City Fighting Soul Arena on a whim after hearing rumors. He hadn't expected such a shock. Whoever this kid belonged to would be worth recruiting into his Shrek Academy. Back on the stage, Aofeng suddenly faltered. His chest heaved. He was panting while Lin Chuan's breathing remained steady. Aofeng's expression soured. Jax, are you insulting me? Why aren't you attacking? Lin Chuan said nothing. Aofeng snapped. Damn it, first soul skill, Leopard Shadow. The first spirit ring flared to life, a blue halo encircling him and merging into his body, briefly boosting his speed. Second soul skill, Earth Claw. Aofeng transformed into a blur, rushing Lin Chuan. He was noticeably faster than before. All right, if he wouldn't cooperate with training, Lin Chuan decided he wouldn't waste time. He poured soul power into his axe. The spine of the blade shimmered with a faint red halo. Cut! Their figures crossed. The axe flashed. Aofeng's body shuddered. A spray of blood arced from his chest. His eyes rolled back, the spirit power around him collapsing. He couldn't even maintain his martial soul possession and crumpled to the ground, unconscious. Lin Chuan turned the axe once, sheathed it at his waist, and stood there, calm as ever, while the arena erupted around him. Chapter 25. Rejecting the Invitation. Flanders arrives. Silence fell over the main arena. Everyone stared, mouths open, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. The host, Yi, was the first to recover. She fluttered her wings, drifted a few feet, and landed beside Lin Chuan. A faint perfume reached him, pleasant but not overpowering. Jax has truly lived up to his legend, she breathed. Even facing a level 27 Great Soul Master, he didn't use his martial soul or any soul skills. Amazing. I declare this cross-level one-on-one fight won by Jax. Congratulations to Master Jax on his 31st consecutive victory. Current record, 31 wins, 0 losses. Her voice shook with excitement. Around the arena, people erupted. Cheers and cries of Jax, Jax, Jax filled the air. Most of the crowd had come for the spectacle of cross-level challenges. The rest were Lin Chuan's supporters. Now that they'd seen a level 19 Soul Master beat a level 27 Great Soul Master without even using soul abilities, everyone was ecstatic. Those who'd bet on Lin Chuan were practically laughing aloud. Lin Chuan felt the heat of 100 gazes and nearly lost his composure. A black blur cut across his vision. He dodged reflexively. A flash of pink lay where he had been standing moments before. He frowned, who had thrown a tight little undergarment. Before he could register it, the arena became a falling storm of underwear. Women in the stands seemed to have gone wild, launching their garments at him. Are you crazy? Lin Chuan gritted his teeth and dodged. He'd handled Aofeng without breaking a sweat, but this was another kind of torment. Who could he complain to? Then, to his utter mortification, someone else, a man, joined in. Lin Chuan's face, hidden beneath his ghost mask, betrayed a furious, embarrassed expression. There was no time to think. Ducking and weaving, he bolted out of the main spirit arena, practically running for his life. You dodged seriously. Body movement proficiency. You used observation hockey seriously. Observation hockey. He spat under his breath. Of all the things to gain proficiency from, this was ridiculous. I need to lay low for a while, he muttered. He wasn't afraid of being noticed as much as he hated being humiliated like that. The thought of underwear flying at him, possibly from strangers, made his skin crawl, especially knowing some had come from men. Mr. Jax, I finally found you. The supervisor is looking for you. A staff member appeared suddenly, eyes full of respect. Lead the way, Lin Chuan said. They went to the supervisor's office. Shang Sui burst out to meet him as the door opened, practically glowing with excitement. The middle-aged manager couldn't stop smiling. "Ha-ha, Mr. Jax, congratulations. I knew you could do it. 31 straight wins, and you beat a higher-level Great Soul Master. Incredible." "It was just luck," Lin Chuan said lightly. "Manager Shang, your arena must have made a fortune today. I imagine you'll be promoted soon." No, this is all thanks to Mr. Jax," Shang Sui protested, then added with a more serious tone. "Actually, I didn't invite you here solely to congratulate you." Lin Chuan wasn't surprised. Ever since his winning streak began, various factions had sought to recruit him. The Great Soul Arena was no different. "I figured as much. What is it?" Shang Sui paused, forced a smile, and said, "Mr. Jax, would you consider joining the Great Soul Arena? If you come on board, you'll get excellent training and support." Lin Chuan stayed calm. He respected the arena. The 7 Soul Master families behind it were formidable, but he had no intention of joining any organization on impulse, certainly not this one. "Thank you, Director Shang, but I don't have that plan for now." The smile on Shang Sui's face faltered, but he quickly recovered, eager to persuade. "Please reconsider. If you join us, there are many opportunities." Lin Chuan shook his head. "I appreciate the offer." They exchanged polite words and left the invitation open. For both sides, this outcome was acceptable. No offense taken, and the possibility still hung in the air. "If there's nothing else, I'll be going," Lin Chuan said. "You're welcome back any time at the arena," Manager Shang replied. Sent back out into the bustle, Lin Chuan removed his mask and coat and walked through Baojian City. He had thought he'd avoided attention, but with his natural perception of dominating aura, he sensed people watching him. Most were easy to lose, but 2 tails remained stubbornly on his heels, neither deterred by his detours. "What a pain," he muttered. He tried to shrug it off, but the presence following him was intense, too strong to be ordinary. He couldn't pinpoint their exact soul power levels, but it was clear they were well above level 50. Even at a distance, they made him uneasy. The 2 breaths quickened. They were closing fast. Lin Chuan's expression changed and he started to run. Suddenly, it felt as though 10,000 pounds had been added to his shoulders. His limbs slowed as if wading through muck. He stumbled. "Don't get excited, little guy. I don't mean any harm," called a calm voice. Another, gentler voice continued, "Let me introduce ourselves. I'm Flanders, and this is my disciple Ma Hongjun. Nice to meet you, Jax." Lin Chuan's eyes flicked as the newcomer stepped forward. For a moment, he could hardly believe it. Was this really Flanders from Shrek Academy? If it was, it would explain the man's air of authority. He let out a small, involuntary breath and slightly eased his stance, watching the 2 figures warily. The man in front of him matched his memory. A pointed chin, broad jaw, aquiline nose, his whole face like a carving, with heavy square glasses perched on the bridge. Beside him stood a short, red-haired, somewhat rotund fellow. Seeing the pair, Lin Chuan felt an inward relief. Flanders was cunning and notorious for being hard to please, but he didn't murder innocents on a whim. If he was here at all, it would most likely be to recruit, not to kill. "Young man," Lin Chuan said politely, cupping his hands slightly, "I take it Senior has come to see me? Any orders?" Flanders' eyes brightened as he nodded, clearly pleased by the courteous but confident reply. "Brother Jax, I saw your spirit fight just now. You defeated a high-level spirit master without even using your spirit weapon or spirit skills. That's impressive." "And you're so young. How old are you?" he asked, curiosity plain on his face. "I'm 9 this year," Lin Chuan replied, deliberately shaving a year off his true age. Flanders' excitement only sharpened. A genius. No, something beyond genius. With that kind of real combat ability and at such a young age, the dean's expression lit up. 9 is perfect. He adjusted his glasses, voice lowering with quiet assurance. Allow me to present myself properly. I am the Dean of Shrek Academy, and I'm here to invite you to join us." Before Lin Chuan could answer, Flanders continued as if rehearsing a pitch. "You might not have heard much about us, but Shrek Academy is a top-level Soulmaster school with strong instructors. We specialize in recruiting young prodigies like you. I myself am a level 73 Soul Saint, more than qualified to teach you. What do you think? Interested?" With a small flourish of his hand, 7 soul rings rose behind Flanders like a halo. For most people, the sight of a Soul Saint personally coming to invite them would be enough to sweep them along. But Lin Chuan had enough exposure to this world to know that reputations and reality often diverged. Shrek Academy had a name, but in practice it lacked the backbone of the truly great schools. It didn't have a deep set of powerful instructors, it was underfunded, and it had no expansive auxiliary training facilities. Compared with the top-tier schools, it was closer to an upgraded mid-level academy. It had no political connections to the empires or major sects and lacked core competitive resources. Recruiting only monsters was more a slogan than an advantage. Anyone can recruit prodigies. It's what you can give them afterward that matters. "So thank you for the invitation, Senior," Lin Chuan answered politely, "but I don't plan to enter a Soulmaster Academy right now. I hope you'll forgive me." Flanders' smile froze. "What? You refuse?" Disbelief flashed across his face. Dean Flanders had expected eager acceptance. After all, Ma Hongjin and Oscar had both been able to lure prospects into Shrek with similar invitations. Why would this one be different? He leaned forward. "Little monster, are you sure? Shrek Academy can develop you properly. Our professional instructors will guide your cultivation and bring out your full potential. If you pass this up, you'll regret it." Lin Chuan remained steady. "Thank you, Senior, but I must decline." Flanders' expression darkened slightly, but he stayed composed. "May I ask why?" With a calm voice, Lin Chuan explained what he already knew from experience. "Right now I'm a Silver Soul fighter in the Great Soul Fighting Arena. Each victory earns me 1,000 gold soul coins. Can your academy match that?" Flanders' face showed a reflexive rebuke. "Money can't compare to strength." "But cultivation is tied to money," Lin Chuan replied. "Shrek Academy isn't well known, and it has no ties to the empires or major sects. That means no backing, no resources." He added another pointed question. "And does your academy even have instructors skilled in swordsmanship and archery? That matters to me." Flanders hesitated. Shrek's teaching roster was thin, heavily weighted toward beast spirit techniques. Weapon spirits were rare there, and true sword and archery masters were almost non-existent. The dean could not give a convincing answer. "Your reaction says enough," Lin Chuan concluded quietly. "I'm sorry, but I must refuse." Flanders bowed his head and let out a long sigh. The boy before him was an exceptional seedling, irresistible, and he hated to see such talent slip away. He considered whether force might secure the child, but he was no monster like the empires or the spirit hall. He didn't kill casually, nor would he burn bridges so thoughtlessly. In the end, he could only make one more attempt. "Think about it," he urged before turning. "If Shrek were richer or had stronger backing, it'd be a better fit. But Tang San will come eventually, and I'm not keen on the idea of him as a teammate." Lin Chuan watched him go, and only after Flanders' entourage had truly left did he allow himself to relax. His spirit perception had scanned them thoroughly and detected no malice, which reinforced his decision to refuse a place he didn't want. He shook his head. It was a pity. If Shrek Academy had more resources, it might have been worth joining. But with Tang San's inevitable arrival and Shrek's limited strength and connections, it wasn't a path he wanted. Lin Chuan felt the weight of reality settle in. He was still too weak to control his own fate here. It was probably time to leave Sword City. Chapter 27, Frozen Forest. Jax's fame kept growing, but it didn't change Lin Chuan's life one bit. Since that cross-level duel, Lin Chuan hadn't returned to the Great Fighting Soul Arena in Baojian City. Jax, the name that had swept the arena with 30 consecutive wins, had vanished just as suddenly. No one knew where he'd gone. After meeting Flanders, Lin Chuan left Baojian City the next day. He would lay the Jax identity aside for a while. He had earned a small fortune over the past month and still had nearly 100,000 gold soul coins. Money wouldn't be a problem for a long time. If he ever ran out, he could always gamble a bit at the Great Fighting Soul Arena. He headed north, his destination the Frozen Forest, one of the three major soul beast gathering grounds. Besides the Frozen Forest were the Stardow Great Forest and the Sunset Forest, but compared to those two, the Frozen Forest was notorious, a high cold restricted area with few species and only a handful of ice-attributed soul beasts. That scarcity was exactly why Lin Chuan was going. He was closing in on level 20 soul power and needed a new soul ring. Ice-attributed beasts were rare in the Stardow and the Sunset Forests. His only choice was to go north. The route to the Frozen Forest ran through the Sylv's Kingdom, across the Jieling Pass by the Tianling Mountains into the Tiando Empire's territory, then northward. The Tiando Empire was vast. The trip stretched more than 2,000 miles and required crossing dangerous mountains and rivers. Lin Chuan wasn't in a hurry, though. He trained while he traveled. He might even reach the edge of the Frozen Forest without breaking through to level 20. If that happened, he could wait in Tiando City until he did. The caravan trip was uneventful. About half a month later, the banners of Tiando City appeared on the horizon. From a distance, the city was awe-inspiring. 60-foot-high walls of polished granite, soldiers in gleaming armor standing at their posts with spears, an unmistakable air of discipline and danger. The main gate was enormous, wide and tall enough for 6 riders abreast, and smaller side gates let pedestrians in and out. "This is Tiando City," Lin Chuan breathed, standing at the gate. Magnificent. Inside, the city was a different world from the border towns. The main avenue was broad and busy, lined with towering buildings and throngs of people. Lin Chuan found a modest place to stay on the city's outskirts and learned an important lesson. Living costs here were outrageous. Even a room far from the center came with a steep price. Property owners and nobles dominated Tiando City. Ordinary people struggled. Even soul masters without backing had to live cautiously among so much wealth and power. Lin Chuan didn't dwell on it. Every day he meditated in his small room and used the Qingwen Ding to refine his spirit. His cultivation progressed rapidly. After another half-month of focused training, he finally broke through. He stretched as his joints crackled. A quick glance at his status confirmed it. Name, Lin Chuan. Soul power. Level 20. One Ring Soulmaster Blessing. Heaven rewards hard work. Blue stars will. Perseverance is rewarded. Skills. Soul Meditation Level 3. 633,000. Archery Subtlety. 577,000. Gun Skill Basic 730,000. Third Skill Subtlety. Swords X85's 1,000. Boxing Basic 698,000. Body Skill Subtlety 452,000. Observation Hockey Level 1 654,000. Soul Skills. First Soul Skill. Explosive Arrow Level 1 55,100. It had been over 2 months since he acquired his first soul ring. Aside from his 2-level increase in soul power, many of his other abilities hadn't formally leveled up, but their effectiveness had improved noticeably. Lin Chuan was satisfied. If he kept progressing at this rate, he might reach the Soul King realm in time, assuming he lived long enough to get there. Early the next morning, he left Tiando City and pushed on north toward the Frozen Forest. Crossing Diao Province and nearing the Shuofeng Lengyuan, the air grew sharper with cold. Lin Chuan felt the temperature drop bite by bite. He stopped in a small settlement and bought thick furs, dry food, and necessary supplies, better prepared than regretting it later. Having spent both his past life and current life in the south, this kind of cold was brutal to him, but he gritted his teeth and pressed on. After 7 days' travel and 2 wrong turns that added extra days, he finally reached the Frozen Forest. The sight stopped him in his tracks. A vast sea of white, trees and ground glazed with frost, the whole world muffled under a silver sheen. He breathed in, and his exhalation turned to fractured ice crystals that glittered in the wind. A razor wind found its way through gaps in his clothes and stabbed at him. A thin frosting even crept onto his eyebrows. "We made it," he whispered, both exhilarated and chilled to the bone. He found a stone, brushed the snow away, and sat to rest. He wouldn't rush into the forest unprepared. First, he would recover, steady his energy, and wait until everything was in order. Then he would go in and hunt for an ice-attributed soul beast. Chapter 28. Millennium Ice Crystal Bird. Chi-la-la. The crunch of snow broke the hush of the frozen forest. Lin Chuan looked up and saw two large sled carriages trundle through the drift, stopping near the tree line. Two girls in blue cotton jackets hopped down, and when one of the curtains was pulled back, a third figure stepped out, tall, voluptuous, and impossibly composed. Lin Chuan's eyes narrowed. He quickly looked away. This woman radiated a more oppressive power than Flanders, whom he'd met before. Huh? The two girls and the cool, beautiful woman noticed him too. They exchanged glances, clearly wondering why anyone would come alone into such a dangerous place. The woman studied Lin Chuan a few seconds longer. A flicker of surprise crossed her face before she turned to the girls. Binger, Suiwu, stay with me. The frozen forest is dangerous. Don't wander off. Yes, Dean. The girls answered in unison, and the three of them vanished among the pale trunks. Lin Chuan let out a breath that clouded in the cold air. Binger, Suiwu, those names sounded familiar. Coupled with the dean's oppressive aura, it clicked. Tianshui College. Of course, an all-female academy well known for training ice attribute soul masters. The frozen forest and the far north were their hunting grounds. He shrugged inwardly. It was interesting, but it had nothing to do with him. He'd come to improve his own strength. After a short rest, his energy had fully recovered. He rose and walked into the forest. The north wind screamed through the bare branches. Snow and ice whipped the sky. All the trees had long since shed their leaves. Still, under a dusting of flakes, the place held a stark, frozen beauty. Lin Chuan moved through the deep drifts, leaving footprints that the wind and falling snow erased as soon as he passed. It was like walking in a place that refused to remember you. A woo! A wolf's howl echoed from the forest's depths. Lin Chuan turned toward the sound. At first, the landscape looked empty, white as bone, but using his observation hockey, he picked up a faint aura and found the creatures blending perfectly into their surroundings. Good camouflage, he muttered. A pack of ice wolves, ice-attributed soul beasts that traveled in groups. They appeared in the frozen forest, the star forest, and the sunset forest. He felt a trace of amusement. Wolves again. He'd run into nether wolves on the Lima Plain, and now ice wolves here. But these were only 100-year grade at most, too weak to be worth catching. Lin Chuan didn't bother them. Instead, he notched an arrow and called upon the power of his 100-year soul ring. An explosive blast erupted where the arrow struck. The heat was so intense, it melted a mound of snow before the wind buried the scorch mark again. The ice wolves growled, then retreated, deciding a human like this wasn't worth the trouble. Lin Chuan watched them go. Killing them for materials would only draw blood scent that attracted other beasts. He wasn't here to farm soul beasts. He had no reason to risk drawing more predators. He pushed on. After a while, something fleshy hanging from a branch caught his eye. A plump, pale worm clung to the wood, and Lin Chuan's heart leapt. For a moment he imagined a Tianmeng ice silkworm, the mythic million-year silkworm with ice and spirit attributes that could, if it bonded with a soul master, bestow a second martial soul. But reality intruded. This one was far too young, nowhere near 1,000 years old, and Lin Chuan himself wasn't a spirit-type soul master anyway. Sometimes such silkworms drifted in the sea or ended up as prized cultivation tonics in the Qingdao Great Forest. This little specimen was interesting but useless to him. He left it alone. The search grew frustrating. Soul beasts appeared, but they were either too young or the wrong species. Once or twice, he almost stumbled into the territory of a 10,000-year beast. If he hadn't been quick, it could have turned dangerous. He felt the wariness settle in. Finding the right soul ring was harder than he had imagined. His first success in the Qingdao Great Forest had been a lucky break. Then something streaked toward him from the sky. A dark blur followed a rapid arc. As it drew closer, he made out blue feathers. 1,000-year soul beast, ice crystal bird. Lin Chuan's eyes sharpened. By its size and bearing, it had to be about 1,700 years old. An excellent catch. If this came to him now, he wouldn't hesitate. He pulled an arrow, used observation hockey to trace the bird's flight path, and aimed. The blue plumage cut through the snowy air as he released. The arrow sang and struck with a flash of chilling light. The ice crystal bird cried out, a spray of blood arcing through the snow as it staggered in the sky. Chapter 29, Meeting on the River, 30 years ago. His fate, Lin Chuan was not surprised. Even with his advanced archery, perfect shots were not guaranteed. Being hit and having to dodge were normal. Again, he called. Before the ice crystal sparrow could react, Lin fired another shot. The century-old Earth King's soul ring on his arm flared brightly. Explosive arrow! A shaft of flame-streaked light flew forward. The ice bird spread its wings and hovered, eyes burning with rage. It beat its wings furiously, sending a freezing gale into the air. Snow condensed into glittering ice crystals that fell like a storm. Boom! The explosive arrow detonated, flames surging upward to engulf and shatter the falling crystals. Smoke and dust billowed, blinding both sides. Something moved in the haze. 3 arrows streaked through the smoke and struck the ice crystal sparrow in a straight line, their angles so precise they cut off most of its escape routes. The bird cried out. An arrow pierced its left wing. It looked skyward with a mournful cry and tried to flap its other wing, but pain robbed its flight. It fell hard to the ground. A second arrow hissed through the air and pinned the other wing. The 1,000-year creature lay grievously wounded, trapped beneath the shafts and unable to break free. Lin Chuan stepped forward cautiously. Unexpectedly, the sparrow opened its beak and spewed a jet of blue frost toward him. "How cruel," he muttered, tapping a foot to dodge aside in time. Wild soul beasts in the gathering grounds of the three were unpredictable, ferocious even when badly hurt. It was dangerous. The sparrow's ferocity hadn't diminished. Still, a sneaky attack like that was plain. Lin moved in and brought the hatchet down. Chiang! The blade struck the bird's skull, and the soul power contained in it knocked the ice crystal sparrow unconscious. Done. Lin Chuan exhaled slowly. From encounter to subdual, it had gone smoothly, perhaps too smoothly. The noise might draw other beasts. There was no guarantee he wouldn't be interrupted. He looked at the fallen creature. The 1,000-year ice crystal sparrow was not especially aggressive, but it was the best match he'd found since entering the frozen forest. A soul ring around 1,700 years old was close to the upper limit for a third-stage ring, and with his current condition, he could absorb something of that level. Don't delay, he told himself. Even if we keep searching, we might not find a better opportunity. He sprinkled some animal-repellent powder around the area, then raised the hatchet to sever the sparrow's neck and claim its soul ring. "Please wait a moment." A cold voice cut through the air. 3 figures stepped out from the direction the sparrow had flown, 2 girls around 12 and a strikingly beautiful woman. The woman had a delicately shaped diamond face, long black hair down to her waist, and phoenix-like eyes that hinted at sharp intelligence beneath an aloof, frost-bitten demeanor. Lin Chuan recognized them. He had met them once before outside the frozen forest. Fortunately, it's not dead. The girl with long black hair and a snow-white face breathed with relief as she looked down at the sparrow. "What a trouble," another murmured. Lin Chuan tightened his grip on the hatchet, but kept his composure. He cupped his hands slightly. "Seniors, why do you stop me?" The first girl spoke up. "You can't kill that ice crystal sparrow. We found and hunted it first. There's still ice on its chest from Binger." Lin Chuan nudged the bird over with his foot and saw the frozen patch on its breast. It was obvious now. Someone else had wounded it earlier. That explained a lot, but more importantly, he realized the woman with them was no ordinary cultivator. The way she carried herself suggested at least soul saint level, perhaps even a soul Douluo. There was no way he could contest her alone. The wild law was ruthless. A cool, dignified voice then addressed him. "Very well, Shuiwu, let me handle this." The beautiful woman faced Lin Chuan. "Little brother, we discovered this 1,000-year ice crystal sparrow before you did. It's very suitable for one of my students. At your age, it's unlikely you could properly absorb a ring at this level, so I hope you'll be magnanimous and step back." She continued in a softer tone, almost conciliatory. "We are from Tianshui College. We would never resort to trickery. If you yield it to my student, I will make sure you are compensated properly." Lin Chuan had expected hostility. Instead, the woman's approach surprised him. His instincts picked up no malice in her words. He had been planning to give way and later reclaim his honor when he grew stronger, but he wasn't sure whether to accept her sincerity. Still, the situation was clear. He couldn't win by force. "Since you found it first and are being so polite," Lin Chuan said with a bitter smile. I can't be ungrateful. It was a fluke I brought it down, really, more fortunate than skilled. No compensation is necessary. The woman smiled faintly. You're shrewd, little brother, but you did take it down, so we won't take it without offering something. My student needs a soul ring to advance. I'll help you find a suitable soul beast and give its soul ring as compensation. You won't lose out. Lin Chuan hesitated. She offered a genuine solution, and refusing would be rude. For a soul master on the verge of advancement, a good soul ring was crucial, and in the wilds, tempering one's pride for survival was often wise. Senior, you're very honorable. I have no shame in accepting. The woman's smile deepened. You're an interesting one. All right, come with us for now. Lin Chuan glanced between the three of them. He had little choice but to trust, at least for the moment, and follow. Chapter 30. Are you serious? The Millennium Ice Crystal Sparrow finally yielded. There was nothing more to be done. On Douluo Continent, the Spirit Beast Forest wasn't a place for bargaining. If you ran into someone stronger than you, the best outcome was to be spared and maybe offered compensation. If they had a worse temper, they would simply attack. Lin Chuan had no right to meet a millennium-old ice crystal sparrow, and yet fate had decided otherwise. He had been wondering whether he should try to absorb the bird's soul ring himself. That problem vanished now that someone else had taken care of it. As the girl who killed the sparrow settled into a cross-legged position, a faint blue phoenix shadow rose behind her. Under that cold light, the ice crystal sparrow's soul ring flowed into her body. The other three watched from the side as she absorbed the ring. Lin Chuan felt oddly resigned. His effort had essentially handed the prize to someone else, and couldn't help the small curl at one corner of his mouth. The cold, beautiful woman nearby caught the expression and smiled sympathetically. Don't worry, little one. Once Binger has absorbed the ring, I'll help you find a suitable spirit beast. Thank you, Senior. You're very kind, Lin Chuan replied, sincere. The woman's smile widened. While keeping an alert watch over their surroundings, she chatted lightly with him. As Lin Chuan suspected, the three women were all from Tianshui Academy. The young woman who had slain the bird was Shui Binger. The outspoken girl was Shui Wu. The composed, cold beauty who had just spoken was Shui Lanqin, the current dean of Tianshui Academy and an 82-level Douluo. If Shui Lanqin hadn't been sensible, Lin Chuan might not have escaped. Luck had been on his side in spite of everything. You're awfully brave to run into the frozen forest by yourself, Shui Lanqin said. Aren't you afraid? Lin Chuan grinned and shrugged. Dean Shui, civilian soul masters like me can't afford to hire others to hunt soul rings. If we want to break through, we have to come to Spirit Beast forests ourselves. The frozen forest is dangerous, but I think I can handle most things as long as I'm careful. Shui Lanqin nodded thoughtfully. That's true. For someone your age to defeat an ice crystal sparrow surprises me. Even Binger and Shui Wu couldn't take this one down. She grew more curious. How old are you this year? I'm 9, Lin Chuan answered. Shui Lanqin's surprise deepened. You reached soul power level 20 at 9 years old? That's almost as fast as Binger. Could you be born with full soul power? Lin Chuan smiled but stayed silent. Shui Lanqin gave him a teasing look. You little one, very cautious. If you don't want to say, I won't press. Thank you, Dean Shui, he said, relieved. Talking too much around someone so powerful could expose weaknesses. Better to be careful. About half an hour later, a fresh wave of soul power surged from the girl. Shui Binger slowly opened her eyes. Binger, you did it, Shui Wu cried. Shui Binger smiled and nodded. 3 soul rings rose from beside her feet, 2 bright yellow rings and a vivid purple one. The purple ring announced her breakthrough. She had reached the Great Soul Master realm, becoming a level 30 Battle Soul Master, Shui Binger. Congratulations, Binger, Shui Lanqin said, her face soft with approval. After taking the 3rd ring, Binger's body altered subtly. She looked a little taller, closer to 1.6 meters, and her figure had become more balanced. Dean, thank you for protecting me, she said, genuinely grateful. She turned to Lin Chuan and bowed slightly in thanks. And thank you for the ice crystal sparrow. Lin Chuan's mouth twitched. He had no interest in thanks. Still, the gesture was sincere, and he forced a smile. You're welcome. Shui Lanqin's voice took on its gentle tone. Now that Binger has broken through to Soul Master, let's keep searching for suitable soul rings for Shui Wu and this little fellow. Binger had been eager to talk about the effects of her new third soul skill, but she kept quiet. Soul skills were private matters and couldn't be casually revealed to outsiders. Lin Chuan, hearing the call to continue hunting, met Shui Lanqin's look. "Little one, any idea which spirit beast you want to hunt?" "The ice crystal sparrow's ring is gone now," Shui Lanqin asked while scanning the area. Lin Chuan thought for a moment, then shook his head. "It doesn't have to be an ice crystal sparrow. I'm looking for an ice attribute spirit beast. If possible, I'd like to aim for the soul ring of an ice jade scorpion, one that's nearly 1,000 years old." The others stared. "An ice jade scorpion? Nearly 1,000 years?" Shui Lanqin's expression went from surprise to incredulity. There aren't any ice jade scorpions in the frozen forest. Those creatures live in the extreme northern restricted area. Only in that bitter core can such a beast breed. The core area is full of powerful spirit beasts, and extreme cold ordinary people can't survive. If even Binger couldn't handle that, you certainly can't. 1,000-year-old soul ring is too much. Shui Wu's eyes widened. "Aren't you only level 20? Trying to absorb 1,000-year soul ring at your level is suicide." Shui Binger and Shui Lanqin both shot Lin Chuan concerned looks. Shui Wu's right. A soul ring of that age far exceeds what most level 20 soul masters can handle. Forcing it could cause serious problems. Lin Chuan only smiled. "Thanks for your concern, Dean Shui. Let's keep looking. Maybe we'll find a ring that really suits me." Shui Lanqin studied him for a long moment, her gaze laden with meaning, before she nodded. They set off again into the frozen forest, the search continuing under the pale winter sky. Chapter 31. On the feasibility of women's clothing at Tianshui College. Night fell quickly over the frozen forest, and still they had found nothing suitable. Either the soul beasts they encountered were beyond Shui Wu's limits, or Shui Lanqin refused them, or they simply weren't right for Lin Chuan. Countless predecessors had given their lives for the lessons everyone here now took for granted. The first soul ring's practical upper limit was about 400 years, the second around 700, and only the third had any real chance to exceed 1,000. Of course, those weren't absolute rules. 10,000-year soul rings gave off soul vibrations that were extremely dangerous to absorb. The limits had always been proportional to the body's endurance. Geniuses who exceeded those limits had existed, but they were rare. Most people chose a ring well below their theoretical ceiling to be safe. The risk rarely justified the reward. Lin Chuan, however, believed otherwise. His body had been strengthened beyond that of a typical great soul master. Every time he absorbed the extra energy left in the soul-refining rice, he used it to train his body. The surplus energy passed through him and left him stronger. He wouldn't boast, but he was confident he could handle a soul ring older than 1,000 years. "Let's take a short break," Shui Lanqin said. As night deepened, the temperature in the frozen forest dropped even further. Soul beasts began stirring, but with Shui Lanqin, the dean of Tianshui College and a powerful water attribute soul master, present, they had little cause for worry. Shui Binger and Shui Wu started a fire while Lin Chuan sat quietly to one side. Something moved in the dark. A plump ice silkworm emerged from the trees, its short legs scrabbling along the snow. It didn't look very fast. Behind it, a large snow snake chased, clearly bent on hunting it down. Snow snake, about 7 meters long, roughly 1,600 years of cultivation, Shui Lanqin said with a smile. "Shui Wu, that one's yours." Both creatures had noticed the humans. The snow snake twisted to flee when it sensed danger, but Shui Lanqin didn't hesitate. A surge of her soul power flashed out, and a phantom Luan bird formed behind her. A blast of cold swept through the air. The snow snake that had tried to turn and run froze in place, becoming an ice sculpture. Lin Chuan's pupils narrowed at the raw chill in that outburst of power. Even though he hadn't been targeted, the sensation made his skin crawl. This was the kind of strength a true Contra could wield. "Shui Wu, go absorb the soul ring," Shui Lanqin ordered. "Yes, Dean," Shui Wu answered. She melted the ice, and the still-breathing snow snake slumped into a daze. Shui Wu didn't waste a second. She produced the small dagger she kept with her and drove it into the creature's eyes. A purple soul ring rose quietly from the empty socket. At that moment, Shui Longqin glanced over at Lin Chuan and saw him standing beside the ice silkworm, which had also been frozen by that same cold wave. "Little one," she called softly, "are you planning to absorb the silkworm?" Lin Chuan nodded. "I was thinking about it. This ice silkworm seems a perfect match, and I don't want to keep Dean Shui waiting." "So you still insist on absorbing a 1,000-year soul ring?" she murmured. Lin Chuan's earlier comments had given her reason to suspect he was more determined and mature than he looked. Some decisions, once made, couldn't be swayed by a few words. "You're sure about this? The ice silkworm's cultivation is even higher than the snow snake's. It's not the snow snake's opponent because of its species, but at the end of the day, it's still a 1,000-year-plus soul beast. If absorption fails," Shui Longqin warned, voice soft, "you could die." Lin Chuan smiled calmly. "Thank you for the warning, Dean Shui. I know the risks, but I want to try. I don't think there's anything better for me right now." Shui Longqin sighed. "All right, you're determined. I won't stop you. Good luck." She melted the remaining ice to reveal the silkworm. Lin Chuan bowed slightly in thanks, settled into a cross-legged meditation, and closed his eyes. He drew the soul ring out. It rose and enveloped him. Instantaneously, the freezing cold wrapped around his body, and the ring's soul power surged like a rampaging beast, tearing at him as if to shred everything inside. His head swam. Lin Chuan bit his tongue to stay conscious and used his soul power meditation technique to reel that raw force in and refine it. You meditate seriously. You gain a small increase in soul power meditation proficiency +1. You meditate seriously. You gain a slight increase in spirit. Lin Chuan frowned as frost began to form on his skin. The bones along his limbs crackled sharply, as if they might splinter at any moment. The sound was terrifying. "Dean, this doesn't look like a normal absorption," Shui Binger whispered, worry furrowing her brow. "He won't." Shui Longqin shook her head. "This is his choice. Once the absorption starts, it can't be stopped. Going beyond what your body can handle is dangerous, but not impossible. It all depends on his luck and his endurance." As dean of Tianshui College, Shui Longqin knew well how the upper limits of soul ring absorption were tied to bodily strength. A second soul ring at the 1,000-year level was practically a 1-in-a-million case. Whoever could pull it off would have a limitless future. If this little fellow succeeded, he would be an exceptional recruit. She watched Lin Chuan, tension and a flicker of admiration in her eyes. If he really managed to take such a monstrous soul ring, perhaps she could lure him to the academy. Tianshui only accepted beautiful women and water attribute soul masters. She was the dean and the final arbiter. If bending that rule meant bringing in someone as extraordinary as Lin Chuan, what harm could it do? Besides, with his handsome appearance, the worst outcome might be that he'd have to attend classes in women's clothing. Shui Longqin gave a private, thoughtful nod. The idea was absurd and tempting in equal measure. If he pulled this off, she would find a way. Chapter 32. A blessing in disguise. Just luck. The tide of soul power kept washing over him, and Lin Chuan felt as if a great weight were pressing him flat. Every part of his body ached as if being torn. The discomfort was intense. Worse, a sharp, tingling pain flared between his eyebrows, an odd mental sting. It must be the ice silkworm's nature. Those soul beasts combine spirit and ice attributes, and their combat effectiveness depends heavily on speed. They're usually weak, slow to cultivate, and often swallowed by other soul beasts. Only a rare few survive to be useful. He hadn't expected to hit a mental barrier while absorbing one like this. Fortunately, the sting wasn't unbearable. Time flowed quietly. Xuewu was the first to finish. 3 soul rings rose from her feet, and she passed into the Soul Master realm, level 31. "I'm level 31. Xuewu clenched her fists, her face shining with excitement. "Congratulations, Xuewu," Shui Binger smiled. "Thank you, Binger." Xuewu returned the smile, but stayed modest. "Compared to you, I'm still far behind. You're a few years younger than me." Both women were elated to have successfully gained their 3rd soul ring. From the corner of her eye, Xuewu caught Lin Chuan still struggling to absorb a ring. When she noticed a purple ring already forming behind him, she blurted in alarm. "That 1,000-year ring is an ice silkworm. What is he doing? Is he looking for death?" Shui Binger shook her head. "That's his choice. The dean warned him already. Either he's overconfident or crazy, Shuiwu muttered. To her, trying to absorb a 1,000-year ring at level 20 was a suicide attempt. No, he's going to make it, Shui Lanxin suddenly said, voice full of surprise. Shui Binger and Shuiwu turned in unison. Lin Chuan's tight frown had eased, a pale white light beginning to glow around him. The most dangerous moment had passed. His soul power was transforming. He actually did it. Incredible. Shuiwu clicked her tongue and stared, disbelief written on her face. Shui Binger felt awe as well, admiration for his courage and stubbornness. This kid is amazing. Shulanxin's expression grew even more impressed as she watched Lin Chuan stabilize. He was a rare talent, one she couldn't let slip away. Thoughts raced. Recruit him to Tianshui College, bind him to the Shui family, marry him to one of the Shui daughters to produce extraordinary descendants. Her eyes flicked to Shui Binger with no subtlety. The dean was already imagining a match. 2 hours later, the light around Lin Chuan turned blue and washed over him. 2 soul rings rose from his feet and drifted behind him, one dark yellow, one purple, complementing each other. This is... Shui Langqin's eyes narrowed at the dark yellow ring. This first ring is definitely over 400 years old. He's absorbed beyond the age limit before. No wonder he was so confident. He can't be allowed to leave. We must bind him to Tianshui College. Lin Chuan didn't know about her scheming. He only felt a warm current running through him, every cell rejoicing. He opened his eyes, his vision cleared. Success, he breathed, fist clenched, joy on his face. New abilities unfolded in his mind. The second soul skill had been granted, Ice Arrow. He could release a projectile laden with frost that would burst into ice crystals on impact to freeze a target. Cold air would pour into the victim's body, not only damaging but delaying and disrupting actions, control as well as offense. Not bad, he thought. The ice arrow didn't have the explosive growth potential of explosive arrow, but it had given him a passive benefit. Applying mental power to arrows increased their range and speed. That, he realized, was because the ice silkworm had spirit attributes. Not only had his archery improved, but his mental power had strengthened and the reach of his dominion widened. Choosing the Millennium-class ice silkworm as his second soul ring had been a fortune. A status window flickered in his mind, and Lin Chuan read the details like a man checking a report. Name, Lin Chuan. Soul power, level 22, Great Soul Master second ring. Blessing, heaven rewards. Hard work, a blue stars will blessing. Efforts always find reward. Soul meditation, Ilvi 7,000, skills, archery, subtle 7,000, gunmanship, basic 700,000, swordsmanship, subtle 685 10,000, boxing, basic 698,000, body skill, subtle 452 10,000, observation hockey level 2 13,000, soul skills, explosive arrow level 1 5,700, ice arrow LV1 0100, level 22, really? Lin Chuan was stunned, but when he thought it through, it made sense. The ice silkworm had been far older than usual, nearly 1,000 years. Absorbing a ring that far beyond his level would naturally return much more soul power than a normal ring. A 2-level leap wasn't impossible. Even his observation hockey had increased by a level. Its detection range now extended to 3 kilometers. His combat effectiveness had just jumped considerably. He laughed softly. The gloom that had weighed on him earlier swept away. Misfortune had become fortune. Had he chosen a different beast, say, the 1,000-year ice bird, the result might not have been so favorable. It truly was the old saying, misfortune can be the root of blessing. Little one, congratulations, Dean Shui's gentle voice whispered, pulling him from his thoughts. Thank you, Dean Shui. It was just luck, Lin Chuan said with a modest smile. When he looked up at Shui Lanxin, who was watching him with intense interest, he shrank back instinctively. Her gaze was the kind that made one feel inspected from top to bottom, like someone assessing a prize. You're too modest. Tell me, what are your plans? She asked smoothly. Lin Chuan arched an eyebrow. Dean Shui has something to say. Why not say it plainly? Shui Lanxin didn't hesitate. Then I'll be direct. What do you think of Tianshui College? Are you interested in studying here? Chapter 33, Tianshui College. Tianshui College? Lin Chuan stared, dumbfounded. There was a strange look in his eyes. Dean Shui, are you serious? Shui Lanqin only nodded calmly. Of course I'm serious. I wouldn't joke about something like this. But if I remember correctly, Tianshui only admits beauties, and students are supposed to have water or ice attribute martial spirits. I don't meet either requirement, do I? So what? Shui Lanqin lifted a hand, confident. I'm the dean. I can make exceptions. Lin Chuan's mouth twitched. The power of authority, he thought. Besides, she went on, smiling with obvious admiration, with a little monster like you, letting you go somewhere else would be a real loss. Rules can be set aside. She wasn't hiding how impressed she was. The soul rings he had absorbed, both exceeding the usual lifespan, were the sort of rare treasures that any academy would prize. If Lin Chuan enrolled, Tianshui might well dominate the next continent-wide senior soul master competition. An all-female team with someone like him would be a tremendous advantage. Over time, the connections and resources could only grow stronger. It was an obvious gain for the college. Lin Chuan rubbed his chin and thought it over. Shui Lanqin didn't rush him. She simply waited. Dean Shui, Tianshui is one of the 5 elemental academies, and it sounds great. But all the students are girls. I'm the only guy. That could be awkward. He scratched his cheek, trying to voice his concerns. Shui Lanqin only smiled. Awkward how? If you enroll, I can arrange a private dormitory for you. Our college has the best simulated training environments for mimicry cultivation and professional instructors who can really help. It would be a huge benefit. If you're worried, you could even wear women's clothes to enter, she added playfully, batting her eyelashes. If you want, I could room you with the girls. No need. Lin Chuan coughed, flustered. The idea was out of the question. Still, he was a little surprised to see this cool, composed dean crack a joke. People really shouldn't underestimate women. So, little one, what's your decision? Shui Lanqin asked, expectant. Lin Chuan took a breath, then smiled. If Dean Shui is that serious, I'm willing to join Tianshui College. Wonderful. Shui Lanqin's composed face lit up. Her lips, painted a pale blue, parted in delight. From now on, you'll be a member of Tianshui. The academy will support you however it can. I'll even pull some strings with the Shui family for extra resources. All you need to do is train, and don't disappoint me. Lin Chuan was a little surprised by her decisiveness, but he accepted it without hesitation. If the dean already thought so highly of him, he might as well take advantage of the opportunity. Don't worry, Dean Shui, I won't let you down. Shui Lanqin smiled, pleased. You're more mature than your years. I believe in you. Maybe in a few decades, Tianshui will produce its first Douluo. Then her expression turned serious. But don't be complacent. Your talent is rare, but your soul power is still somewhat shallow. Even though you've absorbed the 1,000-year soul ring, you should consolidate your cultivation for a while. Don't force your soul power ahead too fast. Protect your foundation. Lin Chuan nodded. I understand. Good. Shui Lanqin's eyes grew warmer the more she looked at him. Now that you've both obtained the right rings, it's time to go back. Where do you live? Need to pack? Should I notify your family? I'm an orphan, Lin Chuan said. I've been drifting through the Tiando Empire. There's no need to bother anyone. And Dean Shui, call me by my name. Her face broke into amusement. All right then. From now on I'll call you Xiao Chuan. Then we'll head straight back to Tianshui College. Xiao Chuan, you'll get to know Binger and Shui Wu. You'll be teammates. Shui Binger and Shui Wu both looked a little uncomfortable. Tianshui had been a female-only academy. Introducing a male member and putting him on the team was an abrupt change. The ride back in the carriage was a bit awkward, but Lin Chuan didn't mind. He hadn't decided to join because he wanted to live among a bunch of girls. He'd come for the resources. As one of the 5 elemental academies, Tianshui was a top-tier school every soul master dreamed of. Elite theoretical training, top-class simulated environments. Lin Chuan could practice alone, but the efficiency would be slow, and some of his techniques needed outside help. The prestige and facilities of an advanced academy were too valuable to pass up. Besides, he'd much rather train in a beautiful garden environment than endure the Elephant Armor Academy, stuffed with 2-meter-tall muscleheads. A few days of travel later, the 4 of them arrived at Tianshui College without incident. The academy sat on the outskirts of Tianshui City, one of the Tiando Empire's regional centers. It wasn't as prosperous as Tiando City, and it lagged behind Soto City, which, with its prime location, was known as the Granary of Barak, but Tianshui was still respectable in its own right. "Dean, you're back!" The gatekeeper greeted them with deference and quickly opened the gate. The carriage rolled into the campus. Lin Chuan peered out past the curtain. The buildings were a brilliant blue, and everyone who passed was a beautiful young woman. Their long, pale legs caught his eye immediately. "This is Tianshui College," he thought. "I really underestimated it." Chapter 34, Being Neighbors with Dean Lenyan. "We're here!" The carriage came to a stop in front of a building. Shui Lanxin climbed down first and glanced back. "Binger, Shuiwu, you've had a long trip. Go rest for the day." "Yes, Dean." Shui Binger and Shuiwu bowed politely and followed her inside. Shui Lanxin turned to Lin Chuan. "Xiao Chuan, come with me. I'll take you to register." "All right, Dean Shui." Lin Chuan nodded and fell in step behind her as they entered the main office. Along the corridor, they passed clusters of girls in blue school uniforms. When they saw Shui Lanxin, they stopped, murmured, and bowed respectfully. Seeing a young man at her side, curious glances spread through them. What sort of person would be personally escorted here by Dean Shui? A relative of the dean, perhaps? Shui Lanxin pushed open the office door. The woman behind the desk looked up in surprise and quickly stood. "Dean, what a surprise. Why are you here?" "This is..." Shui Lanxin smiled and introduced him softly. "This young man is Lin Chuan. He's the prodigy I encountered in the frozen forest. Please handle his admission paperwork." The woman nodded, then froze, eyes wide. "Dean Shui, did you say help him with admission? But our college only admits female students. That policy has never been broken. What if the director finds out?" Shui Lanxin's expression remained gentle. "Don't worry. I'll explain it to the others later. For now, just process the registration." The teacher hesitated, but when the dean asked, she had no ground to refuse. After all, one part-time instructor could not countermand the dean's wishes. Soon the paperwork was complete, and Lin Chuan even received a new school uniform. He stared at the blue skirt in his hands and fell silent. Shui Lanxin laughed, teasing him. "Xiao Chuan, our uniforms suit you fine. Why not try it on?" "No, thanks. I think Chiwo College's uniform is okay," he said, a little stiffly. "Kids these days." Shui Lanxin rolled her eyes and plucked the skirt from his hands. "I'll have someone design a set that fits you. You can wear your own clothes for now." She was not about to let him get away after all the trouble she'd gone to. "Come with me. I'll show you where you'll be staying." Outside the academic affairs office, the stunned female teacher watched them leave. After a moment of scrambling thought, she suddenly muttered, "No, this must be reported to Director Leng," and hurried after them, though Lin Chuan and Shui Lanxin did not know it. They walked past the academy's bustling areas until they reached a quieter, more secluded part of the grounds. A 30-meter-wide pond came into view, fed by a narrow stream that wound out of the woods and returned on the other side. Two simple wooden cottages stood at the water's edge, surrounded by beds of brightly colored flowers. The view was peaceful and pretty. Lin Chuan frowned. "Dean Shui, this isn't the dormitory building, is it?" "Of course not," Shui Lanxin said. "Girls live in the dormitory block. Even if I arranged a separate room for you there, you'd still run into them every day. That would only cause misunderstandings, so I thought it better to put you somewhere private." She pointed to the left-hand cottage. "That's where I usually stay. The other one is empty. You'll live there." "You live here too?" Lin Chuan's eyebrows rose in surprise. He studied her for a moment. "Why, you don't want me to be near the girls, do you? I mean, I wouldn't mind if you arranged for me to be with them." Shui Lanxin's eyes narrowed slightly, amused. "You were thinking something improper, weren't you?" Lin Chuan's shoulders stiffened, and he hurried to deny it. "No, Dean, you misunderstood. I'm only looking forward to my college life. It'll be exciting, that's all." Before she could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps came from the trees. "Dean, you're here. Director Leng has been calling for you." "I know. Tell him I'll be there shortly. You can go back." Shui Lanxin dismissed the messenger with a nod and turned back to Lin Chuan. "Xiao Chuan, go rest for now. I'll have someone take you to class tomorrow. I have a few things to attend to." "All right, Dean Shui. Don't overwork yourself." She left, and Lin Chuan breathed easier once she was gone. The cottage she'd assigned him to looked as if it had been unoccupied for some time, but it was clean and neatly kept. Simple bedding and a few basic furnishings suggested someone had prepared it for a guest. Not bad, he murmured approvingly. If he was going to be at Tianshui College for the next few years, he might as well make the most of it. Now wasn't a bad time to work on his second soul skill. Stepping outside, he summoned a short black bow. 2 soul rings materialized behind him, one yellow and one purple. He knocked an arrow, drew the string, and the purple ring flared. An arrow formed entirely from ice crystals on the bow, and when he released it, it shot across the pond. Upon striking the water, the arrow's crystals spread outward, freezing a patch of surface maybe 5 feet across before stopping. Lin Chuan knelt and touched the ice. A sharp, cold bit into his fingertips. He considered the result with quiet satisfaction. That's cold. The power is solid. Freezing the enemy would definitely reduce their combat effectiveness. It's a good mix of control and debuff, useful in both restraint and support. He nodded to himself. The soul skill from the Millennium Ice Silkworm had exceeded his expectations. Chapter 35. The Dust Settles, Tianshui College, Dean's Office. The office block rose 5 meters high, painted a cool water blue. There were 4 floors in all. The topmost housed the dean's office. The second floor held the vice deans and the academic dean. The lower floors were where most of the faculty worked. Right now, the dean's office was full of voices, several senior administrators clustered around the long table, arguing loudly. No, I absolutely refuse. Since its founding, Tianshui College has only taken female students, and even our teachers are women. A male student appearing out of nowhere? Absolutely not. Director Leng, the blue-haired woman, spoke with furious certainty. Director Leng, I understand your concerns, but Xiaochuan is different. His talent is exceptional. He merits an exception. Shui Lanshan kept her voice calm, patient. Leng scowled, unconvinced. Talent isn't a reason. Tell me, Dean Shui, can his talent actually surpass Binger? Shui Lanshan lowered her eyes a moment, then said something that silenced the room. To be honest, Binger may actually be a little inferior to that boy. The reaction was immediate. Everyone stared. Shui Binger was a prodigy of the Shui family. She had a mutated beast spirit, Bing Fenghuang, and a powerful innate soul force, nearly level 9.5. For the dean to claim a boy was superior to her sounded impossible. Shui Lanshan met their incredulous faces and continued, steady as ever. I don't know his precise innate soul level, but he is 9 years old and his soul power has already reached level 20. He's a great soul master. There was a collective gasp. Even Director Leng's expression shifted. Shui Lanshan went on. His soul rings are 1 yellow and 1 purple. The first ring is at least 500 years old. The second is nearly 2,000. Impossible, someone whispered. A 9-year-old great soul master would be extraordinary, a soul ring configuration with rings that ancient bordered on myth. I saw it myself, Shui Lanshan said. Binger and Shuiwu were there. This isn't just a genius. He's a monster. If he survives the path ahead, he can easily reach Soul Douluo, and title Douluo isn't out of the question. Her understatement did what argument could not. The assembled senior staff fell quiet, thinking through the implications. Given a seed like that, shouldn't we fight to secure him? Shui Lanshan asked softly. That question left them mute. Suddenly, the dean's willingness to break a century-old rule made sense. Tianshui College had always been the weakest of the 5 elemental academies. An extraordinary talent could change that. Shui Lanshan's pride and calculation showed in the way she allowed the thought to hang unchallenged. For a long beat, no one spoke. Then Shui Lanshan sighed theatrically. If you all still refuse, then I'll have him removed from the academy. Head snapped up. Leng's face darkened. You're being outrageous. Shui Lanshan smiled, unfazed. All right, who here objects to Lin Chuan enrolling? The 2 deputy deans exchanged looks and shook their heads. Dean, your judgment is sound. We agree. And you, Director Leng? Shui Lanshan asked. I'll allow him to enroll, Director Leng said, her voice sharp. But if his behavior is disruptive or his character proves problematic, no matter how talented he is, I will expel him. The harshness was more for show than anything else. In the end, she compromised. Shui Lanshan's earlier point had been impossible to ignore. A 9-year-old with level 20 soul power and a primordial soul ring could not be turned away lightly. They were also practical. The 5 elemental academies were not merely schools. Each had powerful families backing them. The Thunder Academy had the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex sect behind it. The Elephant Armor Academy belonged to the Elephant Armor sect. The other three, Tianshui, Blazing Fire, and Divine Wind, were weaker but still tied to influential families. Shui Lanqin herself came from the Shui family. Tianshui College was, in many ways, the Shui family's institution. So while the dean's unilateral decision might have been ugly if forced, Shui Lanqin had the authority and the clout to make it stick. Even the two deputy deans and the academic dean, who had raised objections, knew better than to push her further. "Very well," Shui Lanqin said, pleased. "It's decided. Xiao Chuan will join the academy and train alongside Binger and the others. Perhaps in the next high-level Soul Master competition across the continent, Tianshui will finally shine." No one protested after that. Tianshui College trained students from as young as 6. Not all were prodigies. The Junior Soul Master Department took students under level 10. If a student reached level 11 before age 12, they could advance to the Intermediate Department. Otherwise, they could graduate early. The Senior Department demanded reaching level 20 by 16. Binger and Shu had already entered the Senior Department. Lin Chuan, though only 9, met the age and level standard. He belonged among them. In fact, there was no point keeping a great Soul Master in the Junior or Intermediate divisions. "Meeting adjourned," Shui Lanqin declared, waving her hand. She walked out first, satisfied. Enrolling Lin Chuan had been within her expectations. Once the facts were known, resistance crumbled. There was no reason for the academy to make an enemy of an asset of the Shui family, and the chance to raise Tianshui's standing was too good to pass up. Better to bring him in quietly than to let the news leak and draw unwanted attention. On a practical note, Shui Lanqin had arranged for Lin Chuan to live next to her residence within the academy. It served two purposes: discretion and oversight. If anyone asked why, she could simply smile and say she wanted to help the boy settle in. Those who knew her better understood that she had other motives as well, the kind that could remake the fortunes of an entire academy. The dust had settled. The next chapter for Tianshui College and for Lin Chuan was about to begin. Chapter 36. Protests on the first day of school. The next morning, Lin Chuan was woken by Shui Lanqin. "Come on, Xiao Chuan, I'll take you to your class." "Okay." Lin Chuan nodded and fell into step beside the striking dean. They walked along a cobblestone path lined with trees. A moist breeze brushed their faces and birds flew between the branches. The campus felt quiet and clean, though the academy was busy with the term in session. The Advanced Soul Master Department itself only had about 100 students. To reach level 20 by 16, you needed an innate soul power of at least level 6. But Tianshui College's excellent simulated practice environments brought many students here who might otherwise not have made it. Lin Chuan looked around with interest. The place was worthy of being one of the 5 elemental colleges. Sprawling grounds, impressive buildings, everything felt grand. After about the time it takes an incense stick to burn, they reached their destination, Feishuang Mountain. From the campus gate, you could see its snow-capped peak. Up close, the air grew noticeably cooler. Dozens of buildings clung to its slopes, linked by winding corridors. "We're here." Shui Lanqin pointed to a peak nearby. "This is Feishuang Mountain, where the Advanced Soul Master Department is based. All advanced students attend classes here. The classrooms and dining halls are down that way. Up on the peak is a huge platform where you'll have many practical sessions." Lin Chuan peered down. The buildings at the mountain's base had already shrunk to black specks. "Dean Shui, where's the simulated training environment?" "There's a walled forest on the peak for beast spirit practitioners, with live animals for practice. The whole mountain has various simulated areas for different types of soul masters. You'll see them once you get used to the place. Now, I'll take you to meet your future classmates." They climbed until they reached the college complex halfway up the mountain. A female teacher who was mid-lesson looked up in surprise and hurried forward to greet Shui Lanqin. The other students turned to the door as well. "Xiao Chuan, this is Teacher Haitang. She'll be your instructor." "Teacher Haitang, this is Lin Chuan. He's a new student and will be joining the Tianshui team. Please take care of him." The woman in a bright robe smiled, unsurprised. She'd already been told a new student was joining. It was odd, admittedly, that a male student had appeared at Tianshui, which traditionally recruited only girls, but because Dean Shui had brought him, she had no choice but to accept it. "Don't worry, Dean. I'll look after him." "Thank you," Shui Langshan said, then turned to Lin Chuan. "If you have any questions, ask Teacher Haitang or come to me." "Thank you, Dean. I won't be shy if I need help," Lin Chuan replied politely. "Good. I'll leave you to it." Shui Langshan left without hesitation. Teacher Haitang stepped forward. "You're Lin Chuan, right? I'm Haitang. If you have any cultivation questions, come find me." Lin Chuan smiled. "Thank you, Teacher Haitang." Haitang returned the smile. "Good boy. Come with me and meet your classmates." They entered the classroom. 9 girls sat at the desks, some gentle and sweet, others cool and aloof, a variety of types. Shui Binger and Shuwu were among them, both looking composed. Evidently, they knew this was coming. The other girls began to whisper as Lin Chuan entered. "Why's there a boy? He was brought in by Teacher Haitang. Is he a freshman? But doesn't our college only accept girls?" Haitang raised her hand. "Quiet, everyone." The room fell silent. "This is Lin," she announced. "He's a new student and will be studying with us. He'll also be a member of the Tianshui team. Treat him well." A ripple of discontent ran through the room. Haitang understood their thoughts. A teenager suddenly taken straight onto the team felt unfair when everyone else had earned their place. She nodded, considering how to handle it. Then she turned to Lin. "Lin, say a few words." "Okay." Lin Chuan stepped forward. "Hello, everyone. My name is Lin Chuan. I enrolled yesterday. I wield the Wuhun bow. I'm a 22nd level Great Soul Master. I look forward to learning from you." A murmur spread through the room. A 22nd level Great Soul Master? Haitang's eyes widened. He looked young, but his soul power was impressive. No wonder the dean had brought him personally. Perhaps he was a prodigy. That changed her view. Having him on the team could be an asset. But several of the girls stayed unconvinced. A short-haired girl stood up and pointed at Lin Chuan. "This is unfair. We all passed assessments to join the team. He just walked in. I don't accept that." "Yeah, we don't accept it either," others chimed in. "Be quiet," Haitang said softly, trying to restore order. She had a headache at the obvious resentment, but before she could resume, Lin Chuan spoke. "Teacher Haitang, I understand where everyone's coming from. You all worked hard to earn your places, and it'd be unfair for me to just take one. If you like, I'll take the same assessment everyone else did." Haitang relaxed at that. "All right, then." "Good," Lin Chuan said calmly. "If I want to be part of the team, I should prove myself like the rest." Haitang smiled with relief. "Then that settles it. Class for theory ends here. Everyone, follow me to the arena for practical lessons." There was a tense energy in the room as they prepared to leave, but for now at least, there would be a fair chance to settle things on equal footing. Chapter 37. Youth is good. Long sleeps, falling asleep as soon as you lie down. At the top of Feishuang Mountain, the members of the Tianshui team had gathered around the sparring ring. Haitang stood before them and addressed Lin Chuan. "Lin Chuan, the Tianshui team assessment is simple," she said. "You can either hold out for as long as it takes an incense stick to burn in my hand, or you can fight and defeat a regular team member. Which do you choose?" She added, almost casually, "For reference, I'm a level 58 Soul King. My martial soul is the green water snake. Level 58. Lin Chuan's eyes flashed with determination. Enduring the burn of an incense stick against a Soul King was risky, but doable, if he didn't have to kill. The realm gap was a real limitation. Still, he had no intention of backing down. "Teacher Haitang, I'll fight." A pretty, well-built girl rose to her feet. Her features slightly resembled Shui Binger, though her hair color was different. "Lin Chuan?" Haitang prompted. The girl stepped forward of her own accord. "I'll take him. Shuyuer, Wuhun Dolphin, level 24, Agility Attack Spirit Master. Please go easy on me, Junior." She blushed as she spoke, eyes fixed on Lin Chuan with undisguised interest. Lin Chuan blinked, then introduced himself out of respect, awkwardly. "Lin Chuan, Wuhun Bo, level 22, probably an Agility Attack Spirit Master. Please teach me, senior sister." A small silence fell over the crowd. Who didn't know the orientation of their own cultivation? Shuyuer recovered from her surprise and flashed a sweet smile. "Fists and feet don't care about names. Be careful, Junior." With that, she released her martial soul. A dark blue halo unfurled around her, and her whole bearing changed. Lin Chuan stood his ground, watching the graceful figure without moving. Shuyer snorted, taking offense at his composure. She had intended to show some mercy because of his looks, but she withdrew the thought. Her first soul ring glowed. Her feet barely touched the ground as she blurred forward, a blue streak trailing her like light. Lin Chuan recognized the effect immediately, a speed-increasing soul skill. Even so, her movement was impressively fast. She smiled as she closed in, fist cocked to strike. Lin Chuan shifted his stance a fraction. Barely a move, but precise. As they passed, he raised his right hand. General. With a single, clean hand chop to the neck, Shuyuer's eyes rolled back. She couldn't even maintain her martial spirit. She sank unconscious, and Lin Chuan caught her before she hit the ground. She fell asleep immediately, someone muttered, half amused. Holding Shuyuer's slim waist with one hand, Lin Chuan looked up at Haitang. Teacher Haitang, I passed, right? Haitang, still blinking in surprise, nodded. Ah, yes, though it's unbelievable. You did win. Welcome to the Tianshui team. A murmur ran through the female students. No way, some whispered. Even with soul skills, Yuer's soul power is clearly higher than his. Their faces were full of astonishment and disbelief. Which great soul master could end a fight with a single strike without using a martial soul or soul skills when their soul power was at a disadvantage? Yet the fact was irrefutable. So strong, Shewu breathed. Lips parted. It looks like someone who absorbed a 1,000-year soul ring at level 20, Shui Binger said, eyes shining with excitement. The idea that such a powerful person would join their team made her eager. Haitang clapped her hands. All right, Lin Chuan will be joining the Tianshui team. Let's get acquainted and be on good terms. The girls swarmed around him. Hello, Junior Lin. I'm Yu Haro. Amazing just now. Yes, I'm Chi Ruoshui. You can call me Senior Ruoshui. I'm a great soul master too, but I'm definitely not Yuer's match. Lin Chuan was suddenly hemmed in by a circle of admiring faces. The noise in his ears was a headache, but he managed a strained smile and responded to each introduction. He had to admit it wasn't entirely unpleasant. A short distance away, two figures watched the scene in silence. Shui Lanqin smiled with satisfaction as the team accepted Lin Chuan. Beside her, the blue-haired woman, Director Leng Man, watched with a cool expression. How is it, Director Leng? Are you relieved now? Shui Lanqin asked. Leng Man shook her head slightly. What we saw was just the tip of the iceberg. His true strength is greater than that, far beyond your imagination. Shui Lanqin pursed her lips but didn't argue. Even a brief exchange had been enough to surprise Leng Man, a soul saint with substantial combat experience. True geniuses were not only marked by odd soul ring configurations, many had deep, battle-hardened skill that could turn the tide unexpectedly. I'll accept him for now, Leng Man continued. But that doesn't mean I'm at ease. I'll keep watching him. If he does anything embarrassing, I won't be soft. All right, we'll see, Shui Lanqin said, watching Leng Man turn away. Her lips lifted in a faint smile. As an old friend, she understood Leng Man's stubbornness. She'd accepted Lin Chuan, but couldn't quite admit it. Shui Lanqin lingered, watching the youthful group below. The sight of them, energetic, hopeful, stirred a light anticipation in her eyes. Chapter 38. Refining the Martial Soul. Crazy improvement days passed, and Lin Chuan gradually settled into life at Tianshui College. The simulated training environments were superb. There were zones for tempering soul power, areas for physical conditioning, and spaces for honing bodily skills. Everything was exactly what he needed. The one thing that still baffled him was the arts curriculum for the Advanced Soul Master Department. Specifically, dance. When he first heard it, Lin Chuan was stunned. They were soul masters, not attending an arts conservatory. Why did they have to learn dance? Worse, it was a girl group routine. He couldn't dance to save his life. Being forced to learn felt like punishment. But every time the Tianshui College team appeared in public, they performed a choreography. It seemed to be a local custom. After much pleading, teacher Haitang relented. Lin Chuan didn't have to do the dancing. Instead, he switched into piano lessons. That suited him fine. Fortunately, there were only 2 art classes a week, so it didn't seriously cut into practice time. The art lessons even offered a welcome break from the constant training, a little relaxation for exhausted bodies and minds. Lin Chuan didn't forget his plan. Use the other teammates as training partners. Tools, really. As his relationships with them warmed, the girls led by Shuyuer agreed to help without complaint. He started sharpening his observation hockey and body skills through live drills. At first it was one opponent, then two, then a coordinated siege of 5. Lin Chuan never struck back. He simply closed his eyes to dodge, raised his hands to block, and let them tire themselves out. The girls went from curious to shocked to frustrated. They poured their strength into attacks and almost never managed to land a hit. When they did, he parried without difficulty. It was infuriating for them. Teacher Haitang noticed quickly. Rather than scold the group, she became excited. The team added a daily drill, surround Lin Chuan, and fight until their soul power was exhausted. The girls wailed, but Lin Chuan relished it. When Shui Binger and Shui Wu joined, a control type and an auxiliary type soul master, their cooperation made things even harder for him. The mind-locking soul technique in particular gave him trouble at first, but as he adapted, the obstacles grew smaller. Half a year of this training brought steady improvement. His body skills and observation hockey leapt forward. Where he had once been overwhelmed, he could now handle a 7-person siege and dodge with ease. Even the occasional freeze from a control skill didn't leave him vulnerable. Progress in the academy was simply on a different scale when you had quality partners to practice with. One evening, after another grueling session, Lin Chuan returned to his wooden house, washed, and collapsed onto the bed with a long sigh. "So tiring," he muttered to himself. The relentless training was exhausting, but rewarding. There was nothing like the feeling of watching your own growth. He noted, almost absent-mindedly, that Shui Longshen wasn't nearby. The dean of Tianshui College rarely stayed in the dorms. She was a busy woman, splitting time between the college and obligations at the Shui family. That suited Lin Chuan perfectly. Once the muscles stopped protesting, his mind turned back to an important question. He reached into his right hand, drew up soul force, and summoned a black short bow into his palm. He raised it and watched as the blue-patterned tripod at the center of his room, the Qingwen Ding, the blue-veined cauldron, materialized and settled on the floor, its patterns pulsing as it returned to its original state. Should I refine the martial soul? He wondered. Refining a spirit was a way to improve the quality of an item, whether an elixir, incense, or a weapon spirit, but it carried risk. If the refinement failed, the spirit could shatter. Spirits breaking during refinement could seriously injure the refiner, or worse. Lin Chuan had refined arrows and even mundane rice countless times over the years without a single failure. In practice, his success rate had always been 100%. Still, the thought of losing a spirit or of being harmed made him hesitate. He took a steadying breath and squared his shoulders. "I've succeeded every time so far. No need to be afraid." He gathered some kindling, arranged it beneath the Qingwen Ding, set the short bow on its surface, and lit the fire. The cauldron's patterns flared. A dazzling silver light burst forth and swallowed the martial soul. A law-like force of heaven and earth surged into the bow. Lin Chuan sat back and watched the spectacle with burning eyes. The wooden house muffled the phenomenon enough that it wouldn't disturb the rest of the academy. He didn't know how long he sat there. When the silver light finally ebbed and the cauldron quieted, the short bow floated back into his hand. A faint silver pattern, subtle but unmistakable, now traced along the weapon's surface. Almost at once, he felt energy feed back into him. "This is it," he exulted. Without hesitation, he sat cross-legged, closed his eyes, and began to meditate, refining the new energy. The process was smoother than he'd imagined. Absorbing it felt nothing like the sickening struggle he'd experienced with spirit rings. This energy flowed in easily. As he refined it, his spirit power leapt. Level 27, 28, 29, and then 30. In the past half year, he had climbed from level 22 to 26 through daily training. Now a single spirit refinement pushed him well beyond that. The gains were astonishing. Lin Chuan's heart raced. The short bow hummed faintly in his hand, and the silver pattern on its surface shone with a steady, promising light. 2 hours passed in the blink of an eye. When the energy fed back by the martial soul was fully absorbed, Lin Chuan opened his eyes from meditation, stood, and stretched with a satisfied exhale. So comfortable. He prodded his body, astonished. His soul power had shot up to level 31, a full 5-tier leap. His martial soul had strengthened too, but the biggest change was subtler. His innate soul foundation had doubled. Before the refinement, his innate soul power was only level 5. After the martial soul was baptized by the heavens, his innate soul power reached level 10, the innate full soul power. His talent had been raised. From now on, his cultivation would surely speed up. This is incredible. Lin Chuan grinned, picked up the blue pattern tripod, stepped outside, summoned his martial soul, and drew the bowstring. The soul ring behind him flashed as he released. The arrow screamed across the air and struck the lake with a thunderous explosion. The surface shattered, a pillar of steam and spray shot up, and the blast wind sent leaves rattling. This powers up by at least 50%, and it uses a lot less energy now, he said, delighted. He could now condense energy arrows with soul power alone without relying on actual arrows. The strain was far lighter. Refining a spirit martial soul was practically cheating. A quick glance at his status in his mind confirmed it. The numbers were all there. Soul power level 31, second ring Great Soul Master. Blessing. Heaven rewards Will of the Blue Star. No pain, no gain. Skills and progression lined up. Soul Meditation level 4, Archery Subtlety, Sword Skill Subtlety, Body Skill Subtlety, Boxing and Gun Basics, Observation Hockey LV2, +2 Soul Skills, Explosive Arrow level 2 and Ice Arrow LV2. So, with the Blue Vein Cauldron and Ordinary Fire, I can refine my spirit once, he mused. If I can find other flames, I might be able to do it again. I wonder if the ultimate fires of Douluo Continent would work. A short breath announced someone's arrival before they appeared by the lake. Shui Lanshan frowned at the still-rising steam and the lingering heat. "What were you doing making such a racket?" she asked, scanning the unsettled water. Before Lin Chuan could answer, she suddenly froze, eyes widening. "Wait, your martial soul, there's soul power." He hadn't tried to hide anything. A residual soul energy fluctuation clung to him from his practice. The short black bow in his hands had also changed. A dark pattern had appeared on it, faint but unmistakable. "Din Shui, you're sharp," Lin Chuan smiled, and summoned his martial soul for her to see. "I'm not sure what happened. My martial soul seems to have changed. It looks like it awakened a second time." "A second awakening?" Shui Lanshan blurted and leapt closer. She inspected the bow more carefully. The change to its form wasn't dramatic, but the pattern that had manifested on it gave it an air of mystery. She exhaled, a sound half like a laugh and half like disbelief, and the look in her eyes had complicated shades: awe, envy, excitement. "Xiao Chuan, you're a little monster. You awakened twice. Ancient records say that's a 1 in a million occurrence. Little guy, are you a god's son?" Her voice betrayed a heat of jealousy she didn't try to hide. Lin Chuan waved a hand, smiling modestly. "Dean, you flatter me. It must be luck, but my soul power is now 31. About that third soul ring, I might need your help again." Shui Langshan's face twitched with emotions. A soul master under 10 was outrageous. A cultivation pace like his was almost unprecedented. Barring catastrophe, the title of Douluo seemed inevitable. She imagined the advantages, imagined the future, and impatience flickered in her eyes. "Xiao Chuan," she said, softening her voice into something suggestive. "What do you think of Binger? If you don't dislike her, you two could cultivate a relationship. Yuer would be fine too. If neither of them is to your taste, our Shui family has many excellent girls. We can certainly find someone you like. Why not consider it?" Lin Chuan felt the warmth of her earnest encouragement, and his lips twitched. Shui Lanxin was practically offering the Shui family as suitors on a platter. Extravagant, perhaps, but not malicious. He had the observation hockey to sense her emotions, so he knew her intentions were genuine. That made the offer easier to handle. "Dean, I'm only 9. I shouldn't be thinking about those things yet," he demurred. "So what? We can betroth you now." "No, even if you're only 9, absorb 2 more soul rings, and there won't be any difference from an adult." Shui Lanxin shook her head, her tone half coaxing, half pleading. To secure such a prodigy early would be ideal. "Thank you for the kindness, Dean, but I'm still young. I can't force feelings. I'll pass for now." He smiled to soften the refusal. "That's such a pity," she sighed, clearly disappointed. If he'd agreed, everything would have been perfect, but time was on their side, and Shui Lanqin was confident the two Shui sisters were charming enough that one would grow to love him. "All right, Xiaochuan, get some rest. Tomorrow I'll take you to hunt soul rings." She brightened then, already thinking of the next step. Chapter 40, Mutated Soul Beast. The next morning, Lin Chuan and Shui Lanqin left Tianshui City, accompanied by teaching director Leng Man. When Leng Man learned that Lin Chuan's martial soul had awakened a second time and his soul power had already broken through to level 30, her usual icy composure melted. After half a year of watching him, she had come to know Lin Chuan a little. He was young, but unusually mature, gentle, and easy to get along with. Gradually, she had begun to accept him as a student. She hadn't expected him to be so extraordinary, but whatever the reason, he was a member of Tianshui College, and the stronger he became, the better it would be for the school. So when Shui Lanqin said she planned to take him out to hunt for his third soul ring, Director Leng volunteered to come along. With the Soul Saint's presence, the trip would be safer. "Here, Xiaochuan, this is for you." On the carriage, Shui Lanqin produced a small ring-shaped device from her arms and handed it to Lin Chuan. He took it and blinked. "This is a soul quiver?" "You've got good eyes. It's a soul quiver. I went back to my family to fetch it." Shui Lanqin smiled. "It's inconvenient for you to carry too many arrows. Put them in the quiver." Lin Chuan didn't refuse. He knew this was a gesture of support from Shui Lanqin and her family. Even a simple soul quiver was valuable now that many production techniques had been lost. "Thank you, Dean. I won't forget this." Shui Lanqin's smile widened. "Don't be so formal. Xiaochuan, you're my student. Your success reflects well on the college." "By the way," Director Leng said, "have you decided what kind of soul beast to look for this time?" Shui Lanqin, in a long blue dress, looked over at Lin Chuan. Her eyes shone. "I haven't decided yet. Let's see what we find. But the soul ring must be at least 5,000 years old." Lin Chuan shook his head and spoke calmly. "Over 5,000 years? Isn't that pushing it?" Shui Lanqin's lips twitched in mild complaint. Even Director Leng, who'd been silent, clicked her tongue. A third soul ring at 5,000 years was outrageous. Most geniuses sought optimal ring combinations, but Lin Chuan had gone well beyond that early. It showed the gap between an ordinary genius and something else. Fortunately for the school, such a prodigy was their student. After a long ride, they reached the Sunset Forest. One of the three major soul beast gathering grounds, the Sunset Forest was neither as dense as Stardew Forest, nor as barren as the Frozen Forest. It was a comfortable middle ground. It teemed with soul beasts, though few exceeded 10,000 years in cultivation. Most ranged between 1,000 and 10,000, which suited Lin Chuan's needs. Still, finding the right beast wouldn't be easy. They searched all day and met countless beasts, but most were too young or otherwise unsuitable. By nightfall, they made camp, lit a fire, and rested. Lin Chuan, however, didn't sleep. He fashioned a practice target from wood and began shooting arrows, repeating the motion until his shoulders ached. Shui Lanqin and Director Leng sat by the fire and watched in silence, admiring his dedication. It was a monotonous practice, but he persisted every day, something both women respected. "Lanqin," Director Leng said suddenly, frowning, "Lin Chuan's martial soul is a bao. If he needs physical arrows for his attacks, that could be a disadvantage in the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy's elite competition." Shui Lanqin chuckled. "Don't worry, Xiaochuan's soul skills don't require physical arrows, but they do consume more soul energy." "That's a relief." Director Leng nodded, a little reassured. The Academy's rules forbade weapons unless they were non-martial spirits. If his skills depended on external arrows, it would be disastrous. A faint rustle came from the darkness. Lin Chuan's muscles tensed. He drew his bow and loosed an arrow toward the sound. "Ouch!" A chorus of whining howls answered, followed by a scattering of tiny shining points from deeper in the trees. In the moonlight, those pinpricks of light resolved into pairs of eyes, dozens of them. Under the pale light, a pack of beasts stepped into view. "This is Gale Demon Wolves." Shui Lanqin and Director Leng rose quietly, their expressions sharpening. Lin Chuan peered through the pack and pointed to the rear. "There's a big one behind them, Dean." Director Leng, "My third soul ring might be here." At the back of the pack stood a single Gale Demon Wolf, noticeably larger than the others, and it had two heads. "A two-headed Gale Demon Wolf?" A mutation? Shui Longshan's brows lifted in surprise. She'd heard of a genius from Divine Wind Academy whose martial soul was a two-headed Gale Demon Wolf mutation. Seeing one here was unexpected. Lin Chuan felt a strange sort of familiarity. His life had already crossed paths with wolves more than once. First the Nether Wolf on the Lima Plain, then the Ice Wolf in the Frozen Forest, and now a Gale Demon Wolf again in Sunset Forest. But this one's mutation might be exactly what he needed, a two-headed Gale Demon Wolf that had clearly been cultivating for millennia. Din Shui, take it, Lin Chuan said. All right. Shui Longshan nodded and flashed her soul ring. In an instant, the Gale Demon Wolves around them froze in place, trapped by her soul skill, but she didn't kill them. Lin Chuan stepped forward and delivered the killing blow to the two-headed alpha. A deep purple soul ring rose from its corpse. This mutant Gale Demon Wolf has at least 5,500 years of cultivation. Are you sure? Director Leng's tone was sharp but protective. Think it through, Lin Chuan. Lin Chuan smiled faintly. Don't worry, Director. I'm confident. Good, Xiao Chuan. Absorb it quickly. Director Leng and I will protect you. Shui Longshan's concern showed through, but she trusted him. Lin Chuan sat down, crossed his legs, drew the soul ring to his body, and began the absorption process. It would take a full day.